Who's this? Oh, you're an entrepreneur? Oh, you're a real estate investor. Oh, you're trying to learn from those who did it. Well, come into the lab then. Put your white coat on, gloves on, notepad, and let's build, y'all.
Real estate experiment, what is happening, y'all? Today we have a very special guest. We welcome Gina Sahota to the lab. Welcome.
Awesome.
Gina, okay, so this is, like I said, we were just talking about this offline. We have a special connection. I always like to welcome my Canadians into the lab with all due respect. It doesn't happen too often, and it'll be very interesting because I know, look, I'm a little bit lost in that sense. I'm a citizen, I live there, but I'm currently here in the US and it's a little bit of a different ball game, but at the same time, it might not be. So I'm going to hear it from the expert. But before we get into it, first of all, welcome. You're doing some amazing things and I cannot wait to get into it. But let's say if you and I met at the, maybe Porter Airport, you and I were just sitting next to each other and I, met you, what would you say to me? Like, who are you? Who is Gina?
Who is Gina?
Who is Gina?
So by day, I work for a development construction company here in Vancouver, Canada. And I've been doing that for the past 4 years. And it's honestly the best way to learn real estate because I've been investing in real estate since 2006. And in my previous life before development and construction, I worked in banking for 12 years. And I started as a bank teller, worked my way up all into, sales and operations of the bank, management, and then head office. But I truly love what real estate can do for others. And I just want to share, my knowledge, what I've learned so far.
So I think it's fascinating. First of all, congratulations. And that's amazing because I did obviously look up all your story. I want to get our listeners to kind of just tune into who Gina is. I want to talk about that for a second because you transitioned into, but at the same time, you were still working and learning. And I think that's really important. So you went from banking to construction development. Can you talk about first of all, how did that conversation go when you've climbed the ladder for so long? It's funny, we have very similar backgrounds in banking as well. Talk about that conversation that you had with your supervisors and maybe your employer, who I'm sure must have loved the work that you did for them for about a decade, and now you're transitioning. What do you recall what that conversation was like?
Honestly, I've always been passionate about the lending side of the business and mortgages. And I would meet clients every day and they'd be struggling with, paycheck to paycheck, literally. And I honestly, even though working in banking, you're learning about investments, all kinds of investments, but RSPs, and you're looking at mutual funds and stocks and bonds. And honestly, even working in banking, I couldn't understand it. I was just kind of like, the money's out there and there was nothing tangible about it. And then just looking at, all the successful business people, clients that would come in, they always had a piece of real estate in their portfolio. And that for me kind of throughout the years kind of stuck in. And I thought, you know what, I'm gonna get one piece of property. So you know what, you're just side hustling, saving that money, you're making those sacrifices. And then at one point I was like, okay, I got 2 properties. I thought I was a high roller. I thought, you know what, I'm living life. I'm a real estate investor. And then I get out to the real world. I'm like, oh, there's so much to learn. And there's just, other than, your townhouses, single families, there's multifamily as well. And there's other ways to invest in real estate as well, joint ventures. But definitely the change was I had to do it. I knew inside of me, I wanted to invest in real estate. I just didn't know how things would be in the next 4 years and what I'm doing right now. But I just want to share my knowledge for anybody out there thinking, I can't do it. I purchased 2 properties in the Vancouver market. And for anybody who knows that it's pretty pricey, very pricey, but you do need to make sacrifices in life and you have to think about what's the bigger picture, what's your purpose, right? So.
Absolutely. So first of all, I heard a few gems in there that I want to make sure don't slip through the cracks. First of all, it's so refreshing to hear RSPs because we don't, here I think it's Roth IRAs or individual retirement accounts. And so when I hear that, it's yes, my Canadians. So that's awesome, first of all. But I want to go back to that for a second because you're working in a position where you kind of get that insight of, okay, this is interesting. I'm seeing a trend here. Everyone's got some real estate, portfolio with, with wealth associated with it. That obviously it was a light bulb effect. And then, but I want to talk also about that transition into you went into a career where not only you were learning, but you're also, getting paid, which is fantastic. Do you want to talk about that for a second? How important that was for you to make that pivot to be closer to you talked about mortgage lending, which you were open to. Did you get exposure to that in your new position?
Yeah, no, definitely. So in banking, I did have exposure to it, but I never was that specialist in there.
Yeah.
And I always put myself, I think inside, you're always like doubting yourself. You're like, no, I can't do it. I don't have that, certificate or that diploma or that experience. But at the end of the day, if you are truly passionate of what you want to do, there's nothing stopping you from doing that. My hurdle, like I wanted to get into real estate, and it wasn't at one point, yes, it was a hurdle because I had no construction background necessarily, or I didn't go to school for that. But my niche was like, my thing was like, I'm good at customer service. I'm really great at talking to people, right? And a lot of times that was kind of my hook into one of the developers. You know what? I can manage your customer care team. Because you know what, construction and development are not as, looking at that point, they're pretty much building homes, beautiful homes, but there's that customer care aspect. And I was like, you know what, this is my hook. This is how I'm going to get in, add value to individuals, to the company, and work my ass off. That is it. Like, there's no I didn't know somebody who's going to be like, you can come and we're hiring you here. But literally it was just, hard work, dedication, get yourself into there and just learn as much as you can.
I love that because that's, you embody exactly what Experiment Nation is all about. Like, experimenting literally is, like you said, I didn't go to school for it, I didn't have any experience with it, but can I find one piece of value that I can put in there that will allow me to have more or less of a springboard into that new opportunity, which I love. So so you took customer service. Was that your angle into getting into development, or is that part of, hey, I'm gonna offer that and then also kind of tap into a domain that I'm also not familiar with? Like, what did that combination look like on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, my hook was first customer care and sales, because in banking, no matter what business you're in, it is a sales focus, right?
Absolutely.
And at the end of the day, you want to add value to your employer, right? They want to see, okay, they're bringing these results to, the team and everything. So my motivation was to really, I'm going to be the best as I can be. I'm going to work on, getting sales, marketing as well, whatever I could get my hands on, working early, late. A lot of these projects, they're high-rise projects as well. You're looking at 25, 30, 40, almost 50 floors. It is a lot of work and it takes a team, but you know what? I'm always like, I will help out. I will learn whatever you need to, whatever needs to be done in that sense, right?
Yeah, and I won't hang on to this for too long because I think you've done so much more else that I want to just tap into. But just tactically, I should say, into the lab, we like to give some tactical advice. What did that look like in that new environment? Were you hanging on to, like, because I know you talk a lot about this, the being in the right room, being, by the people who are, have the big mindset, etc. Did you hang on to one particular person where you're like, okay, this person, guy or girl, is kind of like in the direction that I want to go into. I'm going to kind of hang on and be a sponge? Or was it more or less, maybe it wasn't that heroic. It was more like, let me just tap into everywhere in the company and get familiar. What did that look like for you, like tactically, if someone's listening wants to take that approach?
Yeah, such a good point. I think one of the shocks as well, that when I came into the development construction industry, there wasn't much about goal setting, in a sense of where banking was very structured. You had your weekly goal setting, monthly, quarterly, yearly, everything was tracked, right? And you come into development construction, it's kind of like, well, you just show up, you do your work and leave, right? And I think a year into it, I was like feeling a little like, I just need to do more, right? And I was looking to individuals, supervisors, and some of them, they just didn't have the time. You know what I mean? They're busy doing their roles, but maybe they didn't have the experience as well of where I wanted to go. So a lot of things you've probably seen on my social media, I was like, you know what, I'm going to reach out to different networks. And I'm from Vancouver, so a lot of the networking events I go to are in Toronto. And for whatever reason, those ones, I've attended just mastermind sessions, a lot of just live events, getting on stage even for 5 minutes, just getting that feel, that experience. And I will tell you, like, everybody will say public speaking. It is like hard and it can be very stressful, but sometimes you just got to do it. And it's just with experience over time, you're just going to get better at it. And so one of the mentors I met was a few actually individuals. One person in particular, Kevin Harrington from the original Shark Tank, we connected as well. We're actually writing a book, which is coming out, I think, early next year. Yes, super exciting.
That's
and
awesome.
I think just one thing led to another thing. And if you're just very authentic and you're not, when you're meeting people, it's not about you, what you want, what value can you add that to that person.
Absolutely.
At the end of the day, right? These people are super busy. They're flying events to events. They're running like multi-million-dollar businesses. And then it just sprung from there. But I tell anybody and everybody, do the networking. Get out of your comfort zone. Nobody's going to come to your house and be like, here's an opportunity. You need to go get it. One of the events that we postponed till next year is the Canadian Wealth Summit.
Let me give you the plug. That's a huge deal, like a huge kudos to you. I see that you're a guest, you're a speaker on there. I don't even know I should say guest. You're one of many very, very high profile speakers. So congratulations to you. I did see that. That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I know a few of the speakers there. They're very well, they're doing well in their what they're doing, right? So one individual, Grant Cardone, he is into real estate, but reading his story, and I'll track backwards a bit, like 2 years ago, as things that you're looking for mentors. Sometimes a mentor, you don't need to be in the room with them. Sometimes you read their material. You know what? Find out everything about them. Love it. Yes. 10x. Yes, 10x there. Yeah. You just gotta, I think I just kind of thought, okay, what is my purpose? What's the bigger thing that you have to reach for? It's not a position in a company. What you have to think bigger than that, right? Yeah. Write your goals. I write my goals down day and night. So huge. And I recommend anybody on here, make sure you do that as well. I'm huge on having a vision board as well. Crazy goals, write them down, right? Like there is just, I just feel like, you can help more. And I love this platform. I love social media, what it can do. I've connected with so many people, but networking is just like, I can't stress it enough that you must get out of your comfort zone, do what you need to do, right? And you'll hit those targets, those goals, massive goals, right?
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you said, when you say get out of your comfort zone, for most people, and I want to make sure that we hit the nail on this, is, you got to get out. You're coming from Vancouver, and to those who might not be familiar, that's like going from California to New York, right? You got and you didn't just say, hey, I want to, climb the ladder. I want to, tap into my development in a construction development company, but you also said, I'm going to also tap into my own time. I'm going to go out there and seek these relationships, which I'm sure helped tie the bow together. So I really love that, because I think that's what, that is what it's about. It's about transitioning and really and being in those rooms where people can really elevate those any of those limiting beliefs or the mindset, which you're big on. I know you're big on. I can see you're getting excited as I'm talking about it.
I know. Up my alley.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, to those of you who are listening and you're not watching on video, I was kind of pointing to my 10X little band that I happen to be wearing today, without even knowing, obviously, that there is a connection there, because I've met Grant myself, and I've been going to do a lot of his stuff. My agency uses some of his stuff, and I've read his content. Like, I'm in it. I believe in it. And I think that's, those are the kind of people you meet at those places where they'll say, no, Gina, go higher. So that's important. And I want to take a step back a little bit, because you talked about that. I think it's really cool, because I'm part of a lot of these masterminds, and sometimes even clients, you're just like in awe of them. Like, some of them are like, I'm like, oh my gosh. And so someone who's listening, like you said, a key point of like, they're all busy. How can you add value? How do you add value? Or how does a little version of you, Gina, come to the kind of progressed version of Gina and get your attention? How do I get your attention? How can I add value to you in a genuine way, like tactically, right? Not in like, hey, like, can you check out without asking for stuff? Because I think people get in that, stop asking, offer. So what are your thoughts on that? Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, keep it simple. I'm a simple person. I'm very straight up, and I, ask each individual, what can I do for you? Right?
Yeah.
Maybe somebody's like, yeah, like I'm not really great in social media, or can you promote something? Let's collaborate on something, right? Maybe I am good in one thing, but just ask, right? Everybody's different.
Can I stop you on that? Because this is all about challenging these thoughts. And I'm here as you're saying that. Yeah, I've heard that one, but let's take it a step further for experimentation. Because I've heard that sometimes, and this is good because I think you're more than qualified to talk about this. If I ask you, Gina, what can I do for you? I'm putting that task on you. So what if I'm really kind of looking at your stuff and saying, hey, Gina, I noticed that, you don't have such and such, would you be in search for blank? Do you also see that being, less of a burden on the person? Because if I come to you and say, what can I do for you? Well, I'm like, now you have to think about what I can do for you, right? So how do I take that burden off your shoulders? Would you agree? I don't know. I'm just putting it out there. I'm just thinking.
Yeah, no, for sure. I 100%. Like, you just don't want to make it awkward in that sense, right? But put it out there, right? Put it out there, but just don't be going back and be like, okay, well, I need something for you. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of be genuine and just I think the more you help, the more you do, it's just going to come back to you, right? Yeah. It is like all these like events that have like either they've been postponed or these conferences. Like, I've just been meeting so many people, and it's just, I don't know, I didn't expect to be speaking on a stage with these like powerhouses. Like, I honestly feel like the little Gina on there, but you know what, it's a stepping stone, and it's just really telling my story, helping others, because I just feel that I'm very passionate about real estate, and I just feel like everybody should have the right type of real estate in their portfolio, because at the end of the day, it's like a hard asset. You can see it, you can touch it. It's not a piece of paper, and it's not like stocks and bonds, which go up and down each day and stress you out, right? So
And you know this better than anybody. So let's transition into that, because I know you talked earlier about sacrifice, about how you got started in real estate with these 2 properties in Vancouver, which, good grief, my goodness. First of all, how did you do it? And then let's talk about the type of real estate that you're, now you've seen, you kind of are tapping into construction, multifamily, maybe, let's talk about those first 2 properties, maybe in level set for everybody. What were those? Were those single family? How did those look for you?
Yeah. So when I started off, from a young age, I was always like saving money. And then the first property was an apartment, like condo. And from there, it was nothing like super expensive or anything, but I was really proud. Like, it was just, my first property, super excited on that. And then what I actually did, because, in banking, you're always learning new things. Here we call it like a line of credit on your home. So maybe like HELOC. It's great in the US and everything, but from there I was able to take some equity into my second property, which was a townhouse.
And by the way, Gina, I'm sorry, were you living in the first one? Sorry to interrupt you. Were you living in the first one?
No. So one of the things, if you want to really, go quickly and purchase, live with, it doesn't matter, live with family, that's fine, right? Or live with friends, right? But I literally was just like, I'm going to rent it out and everything, 100%. And then pretty much it's just being disciplined and just, of course you want to go out with your friends and everything else, but you got to budget, right? You got to set it down. What is your purpose, right? So 2 properties go by, hold them for a couple of years. So they're building equity within themselves, right?
Yeah. And if anyone knows, Vancouver, I'm sure, is a great appreciating market. Is it?
It is.
Yeah.
It's very similar to Toronto, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So in other words, if there's equity to be built, it's an equity play for sure.
For sure.
Yeah.
But definitely saving on the side as well.
Absolutely.
And then
hustling.
during the times for a few years, I think I was building homes with my family, so single family homes. And I had no clue of what to do, but all the experience I was getting, I was, meeting all these contractors who come to the bank, roofer, cabinet guy. And I was like, you know what? I'm crazy enough. I told my dad, I'm like, let's just build a house. And he was like, no. I'm like, no, here are the numbers. Here's the property, the land, that let's buy it. So it just kind of started with that.
Why building? Why did you go into building, Gina? Sorry to...
I honestly, it was just interesting, right? I think that was the time I was like, you know what? I see other people doing it. Why can't I do it?
Got it.
Right?
Experiment nation.
Exactly. It's a little bit crazy. But a few years after that, I decided I wanted to like purchase multifamily. So I was looking in the Vancouver market and even outside, like even an hour out, I was like, it is pricey. You know what I mean? Even for a 12plex. And so I decided to purchase in Edmonton, Alberta, right? So I purchased, property there. So like just older buildings and, something like a B class, you see, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I could fix it up. So they were built in the 70s and then I've just like fixed them up. So that's kind of my journey. What I'm working on now is just getting into like multifamily.
Shout out to the Oilers. That's so amazing. That's awesome. My brother used to live in Edmonton, so I'm very familiar with Edmonton, Alberta. That's awesome. Yeah. So that's also like, like blue collar, a lot of, oil kind of like industry. Do you factor that into kind of, your retention rate or your turnover with people coming in and out of town or I guess class B, what's your clientele like? I'm curious.
Yeah, I would say like blue collared as well. So before I plunged into Edmonton market, I did do my research. I just didn't go blindly. I made sure I had my network of people. So it's really important to have your realtor, inspectors, accountant, lawyer, everybody, talking to each other before you actually pull that trigger. It's super important. But I did my due diligence. Even the realtor, they give you great information, but a lot of it's to do with performas. And performas, like I kind of like, I don't throw them away. I'll look at it, but that's like a future what that building, home property will be performing at. I take a look at the financials, and I think my banking experience, it really helped to read all those documents. Like let's look back 2, 3, 4 years. How's that property perform? Very important, right? Before you actually sign off everything, right? So that's a huge thing. So anybody purchasing, even if it's a house or a townhouse, make sure you do your due diligence because it's going to hurt you in the long run if you don't crunch those numbers.
Absolutely. No, I think that's such a good point. I think, looking back at history, looking back and then understanding where the market is going and obviously understanding numbers, how they are today and how they were in the past. Performance, it kind of gives you a vision, but we take it with a grain of salt. So exactly. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. So today, is that as far as the real estate projects, I know you're doing a lot and I want to get into, you're talking, you're speaking, you're obviously, are you still involved with the construction development as we speak?
Yes, I am. I'm honestly in between appointments right now. I'm actually on one of our sites that we're closing out on. So it's nice and quiet right now, which is awesome. But a few weeks ago, it was very hectic with our site team and everything. So definitely I'm continuing to learn and grow within the company. And they actually, I think in the beginning, I didn't really want to tell people what I was doing because, I don't know, I kind of kept it to myself. But now things are out there and they're seeing it and it's actually, they're really proud. They're just kind of like, that's awesome, right? So it's just, and just to see people, because a lot of people think I'm from Toronto for whatever reason. I'm like, no, I'm a Vancouver girl and everything. And if I can do it, you guys can do it as well, right? Yeah.
What do you think the pushback was from not wanting to share with people what you're doing? And is there anything in particular?
No, I think, well, maybe from past experiences, sometimes people don't see your vision of bigger things. People are happy with like what they're doing and that's totally fine. But I think when you're going to these like say 10X events or any other kind of networking, you're just thinking at a higher level and you just want more, right? And you want to give back more.
Yeah, right? Absolutely. So. Yeah, as you should, because I think the reason I was asking, that was kind of a personal question because anything that I've really, anything that's scary, anything that's a huge leap, sometimes you're like, how do I want to put it out there? But now I've been completely like, if you look at the brand, that's what it's about. It's putting yourself out there, actually meeting people like you and being able to, maybe if you don't put yourself out there, maybe you don't meet Gina. So I would actually encourage people to ask for help, raise their hand, and then put their goals, with all things considered, hopefully with the right people. And I think you've prefaced this very well where you've said, you got to be in the room where people are able to kind of absorb those big visions and encourage you to strive for more rather than shut them down perhaps, right? That's awesome. That's awesome. So keeping it real, I want to get into this because you have a really good, strong foundation, and I always think that people are, their business is a reflection of who they really are. What is you think is the biggest limiting belief that you've overcame over time?
Oh my gosh, there's quite a few things, but I was always like not the shy. Well, I would say, yeah, quiet, shy, but people just assume that of me. And you just kind of like put that self on there. Like you just don't want the attention or anything else. This is life, and even with family and friends that are around you, they're just kind of think that, this is good. This is like, or you do too much. Like, are you settled? Like, this is good. Like, we stay here. But I just honestly, you just got to put yourself like out there and just like, go after what you feel right, honestly. Like,
absolutely agree with that. What do you think is a biggest misconception you've had, kind of like, what, this is not true at all? Is there something that comes to mind where you've come across something like that?
With myself or like people around me, or just?
Oh no, whether during your journey as we speak, whether it's real estate related, career related, what do you think is people, maybe it's kind of like a limiting belief or a misconception that's out there, whether even real estate or being out in the field. Is there anything that comes to mind, Gina?
I just feel like people just put a cap on themselves. You know what I mean? I think people just blame their past, right? And, things that have happened to them. And I feel like you just need to break through that. Sometimes it just takes some time to do that, right? So
yeah, no, that's deep. I respect that.
Yeah.
What is you talk about? You're going to all these great events, and obviously you're going to take up stage with some amazing individuals. What do you think is the best advice that you've kind of? And it doesn't have to be one. What's one that I think sticks out at you that you've received by being in the circle where like, man, everyone thinks this way, or you're kind of getting this, there's this one nugget that maybe Kevin Harrington gave you. Like, is there something that stands out?
Oh my gosh, there's so many things that like every time I go to a mastermind meeting, I feel so pumped. I'm literally like, I'd be the crazy person taking a red eye to Toronto and just like, I come back so pumped, so motivated of just things that I could do in my, I guess, business in a sense, right? With like mentoring others and just, setting up even courses. Cause like people are like, how do you do that? And there's certain time of like, there's 24 hours in a day, right? And you try to like maximize everything. And I think people know me I think before, if you knew me maybe 3-4 years ago, I wouldn't maximize the day. I'd be like, yes, 9 to 5 or 8 to 6. Okay, I'm good, right? And then I'll chill. But no. Like now, like if you see my schedule to accomplish, I like literally jam my schedule and just maximize time, because time is probably the most like, you're not gonna get it back. That's the thing, right? Like there's no money in the world that you can buy time back. So I'd say just to anybody, maximize that time that you have.
I love it. And it's so true. And it's funny, actually, I have a TEDx talk on that specific topic, just because it's one of those things where how can I actually multiply my time? And you talked about team before and mastermind. So kind of tying it all together, what are some masterminds or things that open up your mind when you're tapping into books? Do you have a favorite book out there or favorite authors that you read that you'd like to share with Experiment Nation?
Yeah, honestly, when I started off a few years ago, it was, of course, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I think anybody and everybody who's read that, you'll get a lot of value, even just to, change your mindset. But the past few years, because I don't want to spread my mind too wide open or anything, I want to make sure it's like, I'm going to go hard and focus on certain individuals and their content. So Kevin Harrington, he's written some books as well. He's just really has great material. He's been around for such a long time. And, I've had breakfast and lunch with the gentleman, like literally sitting beside me, having, normal conversation. But the knowledge and everything that you just get is amazing. And then anybody out there as well, the 10X rule or anything by Grant Cardone, I think that's just where myself, like I connect as well, because I just want just bigger things in life. And you just want to think, on that 10X level, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why did you? I'm so curious why you said this, because this is something I've been doing into recently, like not tapping into too many people, but going deep on like one or two. I'm curious just to hear what your reason is, and then maybe it's in alignment with mine. Why do you do that?
Yeah, I think just, time management, as well as see what they like. Do your beliefs also align with them? Do you see yourself, you vision what they have? You know what I mean? You got to think about that, right? So
Yeah,
for me, there's a few individuals, Elena Cardone as well. She's
of
like
course.
amazing. So I've learned a lot from just seeing both of them as like a couple and just what they're doing to help others. So I definitely have so many takeaways from that, but definitely don't spread yourself too thin, right?
Right.
That's
I think there's a lot of information out there too, and I think ties into that as well.
well, for sure. And with
Yeah.
technology, like social media, like you see people posting things on Instagram, but really are they that successful? Is that their Ferrari? I don't know. Yes or no, right? So it's just
Yeah.
like could be misleading. And I just want to see people who've like gone through it. And I feel like these individuals, they've been in the business for 20, 30, 40 years, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. They're
and
not
I think
going
it's like a
anywhere.
trust as well.
Absolutely. Good for you. What do you think is the best habit that serves you every day? Besides smiling, my goodness, like haven't met anyone who smiles more than me. So good for you. It's contagious. What's the
Oh,
best habit that serves you every day, Gina? Besides smiling, I took that one out of
the
as an
best
option.
habit, I drink a lot
Yeah.
of coffee. Maybe that gets me through the
Oh,
day.
coffee, nice.
Honestly, I'm maximizing, like I'm meeting with you. I had I don't know, 12 appointments prior to you,
Yeah.
and I got a few more at the end of the day. But it's just literally just maximizing that time. But honestly, like life is too short. I always say that. And sometimes things happen and things hit the fan and life goes on, right? And you gotta think the bigger picture. Are you gonna let one thing like ruin your day, or just
Yeah.
let it go? Control what you can control, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I know you got a jet and you're super busy. We're just about wrapping up here. What do you think is the best tool that helps you excel throughout the day? It could be an application, could be a notebook, anything. Best tool.
Yeah, I think, well, two things, because I do like to write everything down in my notebook and everything. So I have definitely my 10x growth. If I
Yes.
always on
I love it.
paper, not that I'm like promoting 10x here, but it's helped me. But then also just, Google Docs, that's
Yeah.
super simple and everything. But yeah, I'm old school. I like to write things down and make, little notes and everything so I don't forget anything. So it's just the calendar reminders and just making sure I'm on top of things. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
If you had a choice between picking one 300 unit apartment or three apartments of 100 units, which one would you pick?
it would be 300 under one roof. The more you have under one roof, it'll just be easier, right?
So interesting. I've had like probably 50-50 answers on this one
Yeah.
for any investor that
Yeah.
steps in here. So that's fascinating. Class A or C?
I would say Class C, because for myself, adding value to a property, putting a little touch on there. I think with a Class A, everything's ready to go, but you're going to have a different kind of clientele or a tenant living in there. And sometimes there can be headaches depending what you want, right? So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Lastly, if you had one superpower, we're in the lab here, you could have any wish granted in your current life right now as a superwoman and investor, entrepreneur. What would you pick right now? What would that superpower be, Gina?
My superpower, I wish I could fly around and I could be in one point quickly to another point. If I could just like make myself disappear here, be where you are, and then head back to maybe Florida and everything else, so I can just get more
teleport.
time.
Yeah. Very wise. That's awesome. Yeah. Well, first of all, I can't thank you enough for stepping into the lab. I guess, what is one thing that if we walk away from Gina, today and you don't get a chance to, or if you do get a chance to check out online or social media, what is one thing that we would just never know had we never asked this question? Is there something that out there, besides flying or going back into time, what's one thing that you want to share with their community to get one more nugget to connect with you?
Honestly, feel free to connect with me. I'm really easygoing. My profile is on public. If you want to talk about real estate, I literally don't hide anything on here. So feel free to like come to any events wherever you are. But I'm very, transparent and everything. So if you want to talk real estate or business or banking or hockey, whatever you want, let me know. Just shoot me a quick message and I'll leave the details with you and everything. You can post that.
Absolutely. We'll make sure to include that in the show notes. I can't thank you enough for stepping to the lab, adding so much value, bringing your inspiration and joy and your story. I think it's going to be very beneficial to us here in the community. So just like that, Gina, thank you for coming in. And just like that, we are out.